Hello, everyone. Hello. Hi. I wasn't able to go live on here for a few days because one of my posts got removed, but obviously there was finally a statement made by 7M. And first of all, I just want to say, at the end of the day, they have a right to feel the way that they want to feel. That doesn't negate the way that anyone else feels in this situation. And there was some weird things that they said, I think, in my opinion, that, he's the pastor of the church and he's also a businessman, but they're not together and whatever. Now, some of the things that I have been sharing have come from a lawsuit that was filed back in 2009. The lawsuit involved a former member who claimed a lot of coercion, mind control, brainwashing. Ultimately, the lawsuit failed under a couple of different issues like statute of limitations, freedom of religion, and not being able to prove some of the claims that were made. That doesn't change the fact that when the court made an order, they did find specific things to be true. And I just wanted to share a few things because I was looking at the order that was presented by court. And this is Chung versus Shin. It's a 2009. The order was filed on September 29th, 2011. And so this is actually a court record. I'm not making this up. This is filed in court. So they found, unfortunately, in the case for this woman, that they didn't meet the burden of proof, and some of her claims were past the 3 years of statute of limitations, and others just fell inside of the belief system of being a faithful Christian. So this was something on the 14th page of the order, after they're going through all the different gifts and all the different things that they said, no, they weren't coercive. Yes, no, this didn't happen. Or yes, she gave this money, but no, this didn't qualify as this, that kind of stuff. This is what they actually wrote. So it says, the plaintiff describes and the court finds. So this is interesting. The plaintiff describes and the court finds that Pastor Shin and Catherine Yee demanded obedience, taught on the consequences of non-obedience, instituted a family system that involved separate girls and boys housing. So this is the court finding verifiably proof that they demanded obedience, taught on the consequences of non-obedience, instituted a family system that involved separate and girls and boys housing, monitored internet usage, and the turning over of financial information to Miss Yee. So they found that they were monitoring their internet usage according to the court. That says the court finds that they monitored internet usage and turning over of financial information to Miss Yee. In addition, the plaintiff claims and the court finds that the plaintiff, Miss Chung, and others were subject to private and public rebukes in church, whereby Miss Chung was referred to as stupid on one occasion and another member called funky on another occasion. So publicly and privately rebuking was found on, according to the court records, filed September 29th, 2011. They said that 2 church members testified that none of these things occurred, or they were rare or overstated. And they found that these church members' credibility was lacking. They completely disregarded the testimony of one of these church members. It says the plaintiff testified that the plaintiff's phone and computers were monitored by the church. the court finds that Ms. Chung did not prove the installation of a monitoring system on her computer, though some evidence was offered that other church members believed that something was installed on their computers. The court finds that she did not live with these other members except for 2 to 3 month period with Ms. Yi, and did not share a computer with any of them. So she only lived for like 2 to 3 months, according to the court, with the church members. So this is another interesting thing that I found the court found. The court finds that the more loyal church members were expected to absolutely obey the teachings of the church, and that other church members were subject to public rebuking in Shekinah Church. The court also finds that the plaintiff did not receive donation receipts, but finds that the plaintiff never asked for receipts. The court also finds that the allegation of the plaintiff's phone uses monitoring by the church pre-signed checks. The court also finds that the allegation of plaintiff's phone usage monitoring by the church, pre-signed checks, and obedience systems were not major factors in her giving motivation. So even though they were monitoring her phones and she did pre-sign checks and she did follow an obedience system, they said that those weren't her primary motivations. So at the end of the day, she did not win, but it seems like the court found some of what she said to be true. And it still is, again, kind of that idea that pre-signing checks, and I feel like these groups are so good at this in that they don't, okay. They said there was insufficient evidence that she was brainwashed, or that any physical duress had been taken, or that she was kidnapped, or that she was deprogrammed. They said the court finds the defendant's behavior was outside the norm for clergy, and that some of the conduct complained of could be considered to be manipulative and for the self-interest of persons involved in the church. The court also finds that Robert Shin and Catherine Yi acted in concert in connection with their church activities, and that Shekinah Church has practices that bordered on coercion. So they say that they couldn't conclusively prove that she was brainwashed. I told you that that's super hard to prove. But they did say that his behavior was outside of the norm of clergy. It was considered manipulative and for the self-interest of the people involved in the church, that they worked in concert, and that their practices bordered on coercion. So they said that she could not prove that she was incapacitated for that time. They didn't find some of her testimony credible. They also traveled to Korea a bunch of times, but that Robert never traveled with them. And let's see, there was something else in here I wanted to tell you about. Okay, this is interesting. The evidence was uncontroverted. I don't know, what does that mean? Uncontroverted, that plaintiff and defendants engaged in a scheme involving a series of illegal wire transfers. What does uncontroverted mean? From Korea to the church to avoid and even evade paying taxes of a legitimate government Korea with respect to transfers. So it's not refuted. Okay. So it's not refuted that they engaged in a scheme involving a series of illegal wire transfers from Korea to the church to avoid and even evade paying taxes. So that's what the court finds. They also found that it was not appropriate. It was not an appropriate way to transfer money, and that all of them engaged in this scheme. The court says they all knew it was a scheme to transfer money from the parents' accounts through these intermediaries in Korea to avoid taxes. So they found that they were doing something in a scheme, but that she was also a part of it.